Good day, everyone. It's Evelyn Ackah from the Ask Canada Immigration Lawyer podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have the pleasure of welcoming my friend and colleague, Jean-Philippe Couture. Hello, JP.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to introduce you before we get chatting, but just wanted to let everybody know that Jean-Philippe is, we call him JP. He is a seasoned business and tax lawyer who is passionate about technology and innovation. He has also founded the company that we work with a lot at Ackah Law called Ingenio Solutions, where he combines his legal expertise with a drive for innovation. JP regularly advises Canadian and international clients on corporate reorganizations, business structuring, and more. And he has worked with clients from many, many industries. And he's also here based in Calgary with me, which is wonderful. So, JP, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about kind of what you've been up to these days. You got a lot of different things going on.
Yeah. So in addition to sort of my regular practice, about 4 years ago, we started building a software for the corporate law practice, and we've been working at it. It hasn't been a simple enterprise, but it's coming along quite well. And now we're essentially doing pilots using it for different things, and and doing some testing as well. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about Ingenio, because we know it from, on the Ackah Law team as the company we work with when we're doing our incorporations across the country for our clients related to intercompany transfers and things like that. But what else do you do? Or is that the main focus of Ingenio?
Yeah, so if we go back a few years before we started Ingenio, we were, I was at a different firm. I was practicing law with PricewaterhouseCoopers, the law firm of PricewaterhouseCoopers, and at the time we were struggling a little bit with getting the work done internally, and with staffing the files and things like that, but also to have a good quality work, predictable, and facilitate the lawyer's review for a simple corporate law task, like from incorporation to annual maintenance to the regular payment of dividend and things like that. So and then we were looking for different software. We were trying to figure a way to get the work done and automate the part where the staff didn't really like to do that work. So the simple, repetitive, prone to error. There was kind of a flip side to it, because it's prone to error. Also, it was just taking a lot of our time to fix, a lot of time we didn't have on other files and everything. So, we look at different solutions. We could find some solutions on the market that would allow us to, blindly generate documents and things like that. But we couldn't find solutions that had actually legal intelligence built into them, from the practice, the years of practice, but also from feedback from users and things like that. So we started working on it, and it wasn't a simple adventure to, I wasn't from a tech background. I was, at the time, I was on the innovation committee from the Canadian Bar Association, the Futures Committee for the profession.
Yeah.
Didn't have I'm in no mean like an engineer or anything like that. So we recruited a team, we started building this, so fast forward 4 years, this is where we're at. We're getting ready to officially launch in early 2024. But in the meantime, we've been, using the platform and testing it and doing all sorts of interesting things.
So interesting. So I just want to get clear. So is it only focused on incorporations, or is it like bigger? It seems like it's bigger.
The full cycle, the full entity management, and even further down the road, like we're already thinking about other functionality but it's like from, I would say, incorporation all the way to dissolution of the company and everything in between.
Wow.
So everything that happens in the life of a company. And like I said earlier, we're trying to build intelligence in it so that we reduce the number of errors, but also that we help lawyers benefit. Like sometimes you have more junior lawyers that are doing some corporate task, and if we can build some experience and the knowledge acquire over the years into the software, it's also structured along the line of a checklist I think you and I have discussed that before. I'm a big fan of the Checklist Manifesto.
Yep,
So
me too.
this is kind of, it was the early inspiration for the software, or the structure of the software. So,
Great.
exactly. So everything is organized as almost like checklist, to facilitate and make it user friendly. The other thing we've focused on too is we've tried to break the barrier between lawyers, paralegals, and assistant, and also even further, like the advisors of law firms, or advisors of clients, I should say, like accountants or tax
Yeah.
accountants, things like that. So we want the flow of information to be constant, so that people know what's going on with the company at any given time. So.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I mean, just for full transparency, as I said, we work with you and your team, and everyone has been fabulous to work with. And when we work with your team at Ingenio, it's usually to help us set up a company. And so in the old days, we were incorporating, and there were not very many provinces where you could incorporate and not be a resident of Canada or not have a director. And now it's like, it seems like it's opening up across the country. So BC was always our first kind of choice first, because they were a province that didn't require us to have a Canadian director. And sometimes I think it was PEI as well. So we'd have to be really creative as to where the company was going to be. But now it's BC, Alberta. I think it's now almost across the country. Isn't that right?
Yeah, so several jurisdictions, there's still some jurisdiction that have a 25% requirement of having Canadian resident directors. But I think several jurisdictions, traditionally Canadian corporate law was, I would say, like in 70% of the provinces was very similar. But increasingly we're seeing some province, like in the last 18 months, Alberta has passed some legislation to change that director's residency test, but also brought in a lot of other things that are quite interesting in the world of private equity, for example. They brought these provision to modernize the Alberta Business Corporation Act, and just make it more accessible for private equity to invest through Canada, through Alberta and Canada. So Quebec did the same thing a few years back. I believe it was in 2011. They completely redid their statute, but followed more, I would say, the model from Delaware in the US. The recent amendment from Alberta are probably directly inspired from Delaware as well. So we're seeing a lot of movement there. So traditionally, where we had 2 or 3 provinces who were very different than the rest of the country, now we're starting to see more differences between the different provinces. So good. BC is one. BC is, as you mentioned, has always been a traditional jurisdiction. We're seeing increasingly Alberta for non-residents who come and incorporate. Ontario has been struggling a little bit with the rollout of their corporate registry, but that's another jurisdiction that probably we will see some changes in the near future. And the Quebec comes with other restrictions that other provinces don't have. For example, in terms of language, having a French name in addition to the English name. The federal corporation also is launching a transparency registry. In the coming months. We used to have a register in the minute books about the ownership, who's behind the company, who are the people with significant interest. What we're seeing with the federal company now is they're coming also with an actual register where you're going to have to go and enter that, and it will be publicly searchable and available. So so that comes with all kinds of challenges as well. So
yeah, for sure. Okay, that's good to know. Tell me, JP, why would a company coming into Canada do a federal incorporation? What would be the reason versus like doing a provincial registration and maybe extra provincial to another province? What would be that requirement or that need or interest? Because sometimes our clients ask us that.
Yeah, federal corporation in Canada, the nice thing is you got nice name protection across the country. So that's a big one. They have a modern registry that easy to manage. The fee are amongst the lowest. Like annual maintenance, for example, is a quarter of what the cost is for Alberta.
Wow.
and similar to what it is, like a quarter of what it is in BC and Ontario as well. So
Okay.
it's very accessible, very modern registry. The downside is you don't have a lot of information on the corporate registry. The federal corporate registry, it's limited. Now in Ontario, like federal corporation were quite popular in recent years because Ontario was kind of in a difficult rollout of its registry. So a lot of lawyers and a lot of people were incorporated federally instead of Ontario. The downside of federal companies, you need to extra-provincially register. So if you're a US company, for example, a Delaware company operating in Canada, you need to extra-provincially register where you in the province where you're carrying on business. If you're a federal corporation, it's the same thing. So you gotta extra-provincially register. So that often adds to the cost.
The cost.
So if we think about incorporating an Alberta company, the disbursements are approximately $275. If you incorporate a federal company, it's $200, but then you got to pay another $275 on top. So you're more than doubled just because of the cost there. So there's these distinctions there, but most people really like the federal registry because it was more modern in a world where most provinces, the registries are not very modern. It's not very easy to file annual returns and do your compliance.
So tell me what you mean by modern. Is it the technology? Usability?
It's accessible online. It's accessible. You don't need to be certified. For example, in Alberta, to file with a corporate registry, you need to be certified with the corporate registry and register with CORS. In federal registry, you don't need to do this. You create a user profile, and then you can get started immediately. You don't need to be a lawyer. You don't need to be a paralegal. You have no such requirements. So that was one of the advantage. I think they're continuing to innovate, but I think they've sort of left their foot off the gas a little bit in the last 2 or 3 years, sadly, because I think the world of corporation in Canada is pretty archaic. Like if you look at all the registry, the technology that is deployed to help businesses manage their operations, it's not like super modern, but federal companies were doing really well. Now we're seeing a little bit of a slowing on the pace of innovation there. So
okay, well, it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. Do you after the incorporation part of Ingenio, like say for our clients, could you be the address? Are you the agent? Do you do the whole thing?
So
using you for that.
depending
So
on what province. So for example, in Alberta, we offer that service. If we have an office or if we have a location elsewhere, like we're looking at this right now, but we can offer that service in other provinces as well. So so that's one thing. The other thing to keep in mind too is the turnaround time, and you and I have talked about this before. So federal corporation, Alberta corporation, Ontario corporation, they all have, you need to do a name search. If it's a name company, you need to do a name search. And it's usually instant. So right away whether you have similar or comparable businesses with a similar name. What the problem is very often is with British Columbia is it's the time of the turnaround time. So if you do at a name search in British Columbia, it's $30. So it's not super expensive. But the last I was looking at it, I think they're at 44 open business days if you do just a regular name search to give you an answer. God. If you do an accelerated one, which now goes from $30 to $130, they do it usually within 3 days. So you get a response. Where if you incorporate federally, Ontario or Alberta, you can do a name search and right away we will tell you, it's available or not available. And also once it's approved, then we can file. Sometimes, for federal company, there's an examiner that looks at the name just to make sure before they finally approve. Some other jurisdiction, there's none, but there could be a little bit of a delay there, but it's never more than 24 or 48 hours for these companies. So if somebody is in a rush, and I would say you want to incorporate a company very quickly, I'd say Alberta is a very good jurisdiction, very safe jurisdiction right now.
Yep, for sure. I'm definitely encouraging everybody to come to Alberta. There's no way, because it's expensive in BC if you want to live as well and operate your business, and taxes are different and all of that. but sometimes they still want the BC incorporation. And so what we've come up with your help and your team is just the checklist. Like we've had to explain to clients to understand that you can't just choose ABC Corp. It's got to be descriptive. It's got to make it clear what they're doing and what the business is, so it doesn't get confused with others. And so it's very different for some of the companies you work with because they don't have those requirements in India or China, or you know what I mean? And so we've had to really educate the client to understand why we're asking for 3 or 4 different name options to save time, to save your time and our time. But so far it's been a wonderful, partnership. I've really appreciated the expertise. Our clients think it's great. We get this electronic minute book. It looks fabulous. It's branded. And so knowing now that you could be the representative in Alberta is something else that maybe we'll share with our clients. You don't have a BC address yet that you would use at this time?
No, not yet, but
Okay.
that's in the work right now.
Okay.
So
That would be great. So
yeah.
where do you see Ingenio going? Like it's been 4 years and now you're launching next year. What could it be?
Yeah. So one of the things we're looking at is not just to sell a software, to go a little bit deeper into the service that we're offering, automating more of the services. We're looking at all the service. If you look at a traditional law firm, that the work that is done by paralegal or lawyers that people don't like, or things that get missed on the compliance side. So we're looking at all these things and say, okay, is there anything where we could, is it an opportunity for us to add value with modern technology? An example, company pays dividend, but very often the communication between the lawyer is not always there, between the lawyer and the accountant. Is there a way where we can send a notification to the accountant saying all these dividends were paid this year, you got some tax filings to do? Or because these things, when you look at it, is very often they are forgotten, but they result in penalties for clients, and then it's always hard on the relationship between the accountant, the lawyer, and the clients to say, okay, who's going to pay the penalty now? Sometimes it's just smaller penalty, but there are other situations, for example, where penalties are $7,000 or $8,000 for the omission. So we're trying to create an environment where we miss less and less of these filings, and it doesn't require a lot of people to keep track of it. So we're really focusing on that and making the information more available to the clients. So.
Okay, and so like when you do minute book storage, like it used to be you needed all this space. So now that you're using it and you're doing it all electronically, that's certainly, you don't need the level of space, you don't need the storage, you don't need, so it's all online, everything is electric?
All online, yeah.
Okay.
All online, and then it gets automatically updated. So that's the beauty of our software. So every time you do a new transaction and you complete that transaction, the minute books get automatically updated.
Wow.
Clients can download, if they want, they can download the minute book at any time. So if you do a transaction today and tomorrow they need to go see the bank for something, they can just log in, download the minute books, the most recent version of the minute books, and go to the bank. And then that simple as that. Because in the past, back in my old days, what we would do is we would do all this work, but very often you've done the work, you've billed a client, and very often the updating of the minute book is, you put it aside, you wait until, when things are a bit slow, but things never really get slow.
They never get slow. Yeah.
And they never get updated, things get forgotten or get missed. And then what typically happen is you have an audit from the tax authority or something, and then there is a bit of a frenzy in the few days before the audit to get everything into the minute book that was signed before. So people are digging through their files, trying to find resolutions and documents and updating. So we're trying really to create a bit of a good habit of having everything in a centralized place.
Okay, so does Ingenio connect and work with your kind of legal practice? Like, so does your, whether, for instance, if we have a client that works with Ingenio Incorporates and they need tax support, corporate, you would do all that from a legal services as well? So there's like an integration?
We can help with the CBERS. Okay. Yeah, it's two separate entities for regulatory reasons, but we work closely for the legal services and everything. The way we're using our practice, we're using it to test the software. So our goal is not to send software to law firms until it's been tested and then it works well. And then we've, excuse the expression, but we flush all the bugs.
Yes.
In the world of technical software, like software for law, very often you you get a subscription, but then you're just like, oh, there's all these bugs or this thing, or you constantly try to find workarounds. So
Hmm.
the nice thing with this is we're doing tests, like live tests,
Yes, on your own
you know,
practice.
software in our own practice. So we know exactly. So we try to fix all of the bugs, and I mean there will always be little
Of
things, but
course.
we try to fix everything that is major before clients start using it. So
How has AI impacted this whole process? I mean, ChatGPT is everywhere. Is there any artificial intelligence components of your programming?
yeah. So for us, it's essentially building the record. So when we started this project, we looked around and said, okay, how do we get the data into our system? If you have an existing company that's been around for 10 years, how do you get everything inside
Hmm.
the software? So we were trying to look, and in some software solutions out there, they do a transfer of data from another software that clients were using. But we over the years we realized that the data was very there's a lot of errors or omissions and things missing. So we thought like our concern was garbage in, garbage out. So if you
Yep.
get all this bad data into your software, so we've really built around getting better, more accurate data. So we use AI
Yep.
more in capacity to how do we extract data out of documents to say, for example, this form, we need all this information that is in this corporate form. So clients
Mhm.
scan the documents, or system goes in and capture data points. Uh, we still, and we will have for a while, people still reviewing it, but
Yeah.
they don't have to do the manual part of it. So we're really trying to automate as much as possible into this. And the hope is that, in a few years from now, we'll all be going to be working from an electronic record that is more and more accurate. And
Yeah, that's great.
like we're trying, one of the things we're trying to do is to what used to be in a binder and not very useful for clients, we think we can put it in a digital world and turn it into something that is useful for clients, and clients see value in what the information that is in there, because the
Mhm.
information is accurate
Yeah.
and it's done on time, and it's not a burden for
And
anyone.
it's not a burden. I love it. I mean, I love talking to lawyers who recognize that technology is a value add. Technology makes us better lawyers. We need to embrace it as opposed to like, oh, I don't want to go into that cloud-based world or using technology in a way that's it's not going to replace lawyers ever, but it
Yeah.
allows us to focus on quality work and the real thinking and analysis and things that that people to people connection. So I just feel it's fabulous that you've embraced it, and I'm excited to see how it grows and develops. And we're really grateful for the opportunity to continue working with Ingenio. So I wanted just to say, is there anything else you want to share, JP, about your practice, about Ingenio, how people can find you?
Yeah. So we're in the process of launching a brand new website, but
Right.
they can email me directly, jcouture@ingenio.ca.
Okay.
Uh, and if it's just other fellow innovator or clients who have questions, always happy to take the time to sit down with people and talk about innovation. Like you said, I think you're absolutely right. As lawyers, as a profession, innovation is a collective responsibility. We need to all do this.
Mhm.
Uh, we need more innovator like you, and we need, we all need to work towards that. Like I think it's in the end, it's the clients that get the benefit from it.
Absolutely. I agree. This is certainly going to benefit a lot of clients. So I want to thank you so much for joining me on my podcast, JP. It's been a pleasure, and continued success with Ingenio and your practice. Take
Thank
care.
you so much. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. Thank you so much.